Now, when it comes to COVID-19 vaccines, South Africa has an adequate supply, but it's proving tough to get jabs into people's arms. Some are put off by the long journey to vaccination centres, and others are worried about the side effects. So far, just under 10 million people have been fully vaccinated against the virus. That's less than 25% of adults in the country. In the hope of reaching those in rural areas, one organisation has set up mobile vaccination clinics. DW's Adrian Kriesch has more.
It's payday for social grants in the town of Thulamahashe. Hundreds of people have travelled in from surrounding villages. The province of Mpumalanga is one of the poorest in South Africa and also has one of the country's lowest vaccination rates. That's why health workers have set up a mobile vaccination site right next to the queue. It is easier for me when I can get vaccinated at the same place where I pick up my social grant. They only came once to my village to vaccinate, and I only learned about it when it was too late. That's why I'm happy I can get it here today. Mobile vaccination sites are being set up next to welfare offices and supermarkets where grants are paid out all over the country. The idea: take the vaccine to the people.
So in the course of today, about 700 people over 60 will collect their grants. We know that people over 60 are far more vulnerable and far more exposed to COVID and severe consequences from COVID. So it was an obvious thing to come to the queue where older people are collecting their grants to offer vaccines, because they are already in town at a place where they are easy to find and approach and offer the vaccine.
Less than 1 in 5 people in Mpumalanga have been vaccinated so far.
Many people here haven't been vaccinated because they live in rural areas. It is expensive and difficult for them to reach vaccination centers.
It's not just access to vaccination that's stopping people getting the jab. There are other worrying reasons, says Elizabeth Oduwole. She's been researching why people in Cape Town are reluctant to get vaccinated. People's religious beliefs are one issue. She has ideas on how to combat this.
If religion has been pointed out in a particular population, then what will be recommended is what I'll call, or what is generally called, the stakeholders engagement. Engage religious leaders, opinion leaders, community leaders. And for social media, that's a tough nut to crack.
Those waiting for their social grants in Mpumalanga have also heard many rumors about vaccination side effects. But Carlos Mavanga isn't worried. He says all his friends who got it are doing fine.
Well, for more on this, I'm joined by Ashraf Kagee. He's a professor in the Department of Psychology at Stellenbosch University. Thank you very much indeed for being with us here on DW News Africa. Now, despite the COVID-19 vaccine being available to all South African adults, why is the uptake so low?
There are a range of reasons. We should keep in mind that the task of vaccinating the entire adult population in a very short space of time is quite unprecedented. Usually, government vaccination drives have been targeted at infants and children and travelers, and there's never been a need to vaccinate adults on such a large scale, because there's never been a pandemic of this nature in living memory. The second thing that I want to say is that usually people believe that contact with the health system is necessary only when they become ill. And so it does require some kind of psychological shift to accept that a well person requires a vaccination to remain well. Those are a couple of initial reasons. But I think also whenever a new concept or technology is introduced into a society, not everybody is going to rush at once. There'll be innovators, there'll be early adopters, there'll be an early majority. And what we now need is the late majority to step up and make themselves available for vaccination.
OK, so could you talk us through some of the social norms and behavioural elements that play a part in this vaccine hesitancy that we're seeing?
Yeah, so the research on social norms tells us that people's behavior is often influenced by their perceptions of what is normal or typical in other people. So if people understand and believe that most other people have accepted a vaccine, then there's a strong likelihood that many other people will follow. But of course, this is required in the context of information that vaccines actually save lives.
So how do you convince people to take the jab when there are challenges around convincing them to do so?
We need to counter vaccine hesitancy. We need correct information based on the latest research. We need easy access to vaccination sites. So vaccination sites should be where people are. Taxi ranks, train stations, where farms are, close to places where people actually are to be found in large numbers. We need visible social marketing campaigns and community champions who encourage acceptance of vaccination. So, for example, the Congress of Traditional Leaders of South Africa has called on men to take the COVID-19 vaccine because relatively lower numbers of men have been accepting the vaccine compared to women. Also, religious leaders who have a huge amount of influence among their congregation, they should continue to be role models in accepting a vaccine. And then other prominent community members, celebrities, sportsmen and women, health workers, elders, to publicly accept a vaccination and encourage others to do the same.
All right. Ashraf, Kagee, thank you very much indeed for your insights.